Baseball is a game riddled with superstitions and curses, and these stories are as deeply rooted in the sport as the game of baseball itself. But what if I told you these superstitions carried over into the virtual world of baseball? Could there be a curse associated with being featured as a cover athlete in a video game? In today's video, we'll be exploring this question by taking a look at all the cover athletes featured in MLB The Show and investigating whether their appearances on the cover had any impact on their careers. We're going to start all the way back in 1997 when the first game in its history starred Bernie Williams in MLB 98, and go all the way through the freshly unsuspended Fernando Tatis, who starred in MLB The Show 21. Don't worry, we'll mention Ohtani as well. I couldn't forget that man if I tried. Rest assured, there's going to be a lot of stories to uncover and some things you probably have not heard of before. I'm excited, you're excited. This is going to be a ride, so I hope you guys are buckled up. And let's get into it. All right, to make this simple, we are looking strictly at the year before they were featured as a cover athlete and compare it to the year that they had while they were a cover athlete. If there's anything weird that happens around this time, we will touch on it. Also, we are only going to touch on MLB The Show cover athletes with one small caveat that you'll see near the end. But because there are so many cover athletes throughout the years, we are only going to spend time on the most significant stories, as I know you probably don't care too much that the difference between Ripken Jr.'s years was 3 home runs and 3 doubles. So let's start with MLB 98 featuring Bernie Williams. MLB 98 was released in August of 1997, but we'll be looking at 98 because he had already played through most of the season. And Bernie Williams actually had a career year, winning the batting title and spotting a career best 997 OPS. Moving on to MLB 99 featuring Ripken Jr. And funny enough, MLB 99 actually came out in April 14th of 1998. He played essentially the same, clearly not much of a difference. Let's move on. MLB 2000 came out in April of 99 starring Vaughn. So again, we'll look at the 98 and 99 season. And this definitely is the biggest difference we've seen so far. In 98, you can definitely see why he became a cover athlete for the year that he had, rocking an OPS of almost 1,000 and hitting 40 home runs. He then signed a 6-year, $80 million contract to play for the Angels. And as a cover athlete, the first thing he did was fall down the visitors' dugout steps on the very first play of the very first game, badly spraining his ankle. Now, how does this happen? You could chalk it up to bad luck, but he wasn't out for long, thankfully, and finished with 33 home runs. MLB 2001 came out in March of 2000, starring Chipper Jones. It's hard to do any better than what Chipper Jones did in his 1999 season, slugging 45 home runs and spotting a 1.074 OPS, winning the MVP and the Silver Slugger. In the 2000 season, where he became the cover athlete, was just as impressive. Although his OPS was 100 points worse, we will not hold him to it. MLB 2002 released in May of 2001, and it does appear that the pressures of being a cover athlete would take a toll on Andruw Jones. And they really were creative. They went from Chipper Jones to Andruw Jones, and both played on the same team. And while he had a solid year the year before he was a cover athlete, his 2001 season wasn't too great. Unable to produce in the same way, he had an OPS 130 points lower. On paper, it was a solid year though, slugging 34 home runs and posting the same number of RBIs, but not necessarily a cover athlete worthy performance with a 251 average and a 772 OPS. MLB 2003 featuring Barry Bonds on the cover. It will shock absolutely nobody that Barry Bonds had a good year when the game was released in 2002. If you haven't checked his baseball reference page lately, do yourself a favor, but please make sure you have pants on. MLB 2004 was released in June of 2003. Shawn Green had an incredible year the year before he was a cover athlete in 2002. The year after, not so much, not being able to live up to the expectations of years previously, posting an OPS over 900 in 3 of the last 4 years. He failed to do it this year, and this was the start of his ultimate decline. But he didn't have any injuries, and he had turned 30 the year he was on the cover, so I'm not calling it anything crazy. March of 2004 is when MLB 2005 came out, starring Eric Chavez. He had a solid year, although he did miss 6 weeks of games due to breaking his wrist on June 1st when he was hit by a pitch. And this will not be the first time we'll see this, so just keep this in the back of your mind. Something else notable from this year is that he signed a 6-year, $66 million contract extension during spring training, and to this day is the biggest deal in A's franchise history. So pretty good year for Chavez despite taking one to the wrist. The last year before ultimately changing the name of the series to The Show in 2006, Vladimir Guerrero was a cover athlete, and this came out in March of 2005. His seasons looked nearly identical from his slash line, but had 7 less home runs. Ultimately, the most notable thing to happen this year for Vladdy Sr. is that he was put on the DL for 2 weeks because he partially dislocated his left shoulder. So either this man is built of steel or he had balls of steel and just toughed it out for the remainder of the season. What a stud. MLB 06 The Show starring David Ortiz. This might be one of the most iconic video game covers of all time, in my opinion. This game was huge at the time, and Big Papi was just as big, no pun intended, but he had an incredible year when this was released in 2006, leading the AL in home runs, RBIs, and walks, while rocking a solid 1.049 OPS. He also broke the Red Sox all-time single-season home run record that year and signed a 4-year, $52 million contract extension, a massive year for Ortiz. Wright is another example of just being an absolute stud. Performed slightly better the year he was a cover athlete. He managed to steal 34 bags, but otherwise pretty unremarkable. MLB 08 The Show starring Ryan Howard as a cover athlete was a fun one as well. The year before, he had an incredible year, posting 47 home runs and a 976 OPS. The year he was a cover athlete in 08 was not as great of a year, but he did hit 1 more home run and somehow finished second in MVP voting. Either way, it was another incredible year in the slugger's career, and he also won the World Series that year. So yeah, we're not calling 2011 a curse, all right? Dustin Pedroia, the original Short King, won the MVP the year before he was a cover athlete in 08. He also won a Gold Glove and a Silver Slugger, as well as an All-Star nod. So yeah, pretty damn good year. The year he was a cover athlete, however, he did not win any of those awards, but did end up earning a spot on the All-Star team. Still had a pretty solid year, but yeah, pretty unremarkable. Next up, we have MLB 10 and 11, and I grouped both of these together because they starred Joe Mauer as the cover athlete. And this is an interesting one because this might be the first example of a cover athlete having some bad luck. Could it be the curse? Maybe it was those god-awful MLB The Show commercials he was featured in.
Come on, Mauer, put your skirt into it. This is the show, not ladies' night at the Duluth Puttin' Hut. I've seen better swings on a porch. Hey, maybe instead of the pure control system, we should have added a make Joe not choke system. Am I right?
With a stick. Well played, Mauer.
Anyway, his 2009 career before he was a cover athlete does not really even compare to the 2 years that he was a cover athlete, and not the greatest way. In 2009, he won the MVP, Gold Glove, and Silver Slugger, posting career highs in batting average, on base, and slugging percentage, hitting the most home runs in his career by over double. The 2 years that followed, however, a very solid year in 2010, where he won the Gold Glove and Silver Slugger, but his slugging percentage was down over 100 points. That would continue into the next year where he sported a 729 OPS. He was also put on the 60-day DL for bilateral leg weakness, and had to be put on the 15-day DL with pneumonia. The leg weakness was a bizarre situation, as it was due to a rare viral infection, but took weeks for doctors to diagnose. Was it the curse? I mean, I don't know, but it's suspicious, right? He also dealt with a pneumonia infection at the very end of a frustrating season, as he was only able to put up 3 home runs and 30 RBIs, and this was a nightmare for Mauer, as the sorry 63 and 99 Twins relied on him heavily, and he just couldn't stay on the field. MLB 12 featuring Adrian Gonzales as a cover athlete was a very interesting story. He obviously earned his spot on the list, as the year before he led the AL in hits and rocked an elite 957 OPS. However, the year he became a cover athlete was a bit strange, as he was traded to the Dodgers and did significantly worse overall, with an OPS 150 points lower than the year before and was under 800 when he played for the Dodgers. He never got back to that cover athlete status, but goddamn did he have a nice goatee. Moving on to MLB 13. Psych! You thought I would miss it, didn't ya? I know one of you were waiting for me to skip over this one. And for those that don't know, Jose Bautista was a cover athlete on MLB The Show 12, on the PS Vita, and the Canadian release of MLB The Show in 13. There actually has been a few different cover athletes starring Blue Jays players. I'm gonna spend just a second on them because that's kind of what we do, if you haven't figured that out yet. There's also been some Taiwanese covers starring Wei Yin Cheng, but his years have been average to say the least, so we won't really touch on that one. Okay, so Bautista is the only one we'll even consider remotely legit, as I remember seeing his cover specifically for the PS Vita, and if you missed out on the PS Vita, just imagine playing on the Switch, but you could actually hit the ball. It was sick. Anywho, Jose Bautista is famously known for having one of the greatest bat flips of all time. You know I had to play it. It's sexy, deal with it. Anyways, Bautista went sicko mode the year before he was a cover athlete, slugging over 600 and leading the leagues in home runs, walks, and OPS, finishing third in the AL MVP. The 2 years of his cover athlete status, though, very suspicious. On July 16th, Jose Bautista fouls a ball and hurts his wrist. Next day, he's put on the DL. He doesn't even make it back until the 26th of August. 2 days later, they announce he will need season-ending surgery and he will need 6 months to recover. He was injured for a decent amount of time during both years he was a cover athlete. I mean, I don't know what to call this, but it definitely isn't luck. The alt cover in 2014 featured Brett Lawrie. Yes, that Brett Lawrie was featured as a cover athlete in Canada. Do you now understand why I said they don't matter? Aw, to hell with it. Let's dive in. This man could not get in more than 70 games that year he was a cover athlete, and he was barely a league average hitter with an OPS plus of 103, and this is honestly just the start of the end of his career. Alright, well what about the rest of them? The 2015 Russell Martin cover is a strange one because he was on the cover before he even had an at-bat with the Blue Jays. He was an all-star that year, so way not to suck, I guess. 2017 Aaron Sanchez was featured as the cover athlete in Canada and only had 8 starts and pitched 36 innings. This is going to sound made up, but it all started when he had a blister on his middle finger and it led to him having half of his fingernail removed. It sounds a bit cursed to me. Marcus Stroman was on the cover in 18. Surprisingly, he had the worst ERA of his entire career by a decent margin, and he went on the DL with a blister. All right, this is getting a bit strange. The baseball gods must have hated these covers because good God, what the hell did we just unearth? All right, we're getting sidetracked here. Let's get back to the original story. So if you weren't keeping track before I went on the tirade about alternate MLB The Show covers, we end up back on MLB 13 starring Andrew McCutchen. His story as a cover athlete is a good one. He may not have had an OPS higher than he did the year before, but the year he was a cover athlete, he ended up winning the MVP, which went along with his 7.8 B WAR. He obviously played great defense and stole 27 bags. Can't really ask much else out of a cover athlete in my opinion. The anti-cover athlete curse, if you will. MLB 14 starring Miguel Cabrera. Cabrera won the MVP in 2012 and 2013. It was really impossible to expect him to do it a third time, and sadly he did not, as in 2014, Miguel had 19 less home runs than his previous 2 years, and overall he had a nice year with an OPS of about 900, and he did lead the league in doubles. It just seems that for whatever reason his power numbers kind of went down the drain, and they really have not come close ever since. However, he's still on pace for a Hall of Fame career. MLB 15, starring Yasiel Puig as a cover athlete, might be the truest Madden type cover athlete curse that we've seen, as he's no longer even playing in the MLB, and it doesn't look like he will be anytime soon. Puig burst into the league at the age of 22 in 2013, finishing second in the Rookie of the Year voting and 15th in MVP despite only playing in 104 games. In 2014, he continued to put up good numbers and was absolute must-see TV with his semantics on and off the field. However, the year he was a cover athlete in 2015, he suddenly became a very average major league player, rocking a 255 average and a 758 OPS. He also dealt with hamstring issues this year, playing in only 79 games, and this ultimately would be the first huddle in a very complicated career. But yeah, that dude is definitely out of the league. I'm noticing a trend here. These cover athletes have been more often than not an MVP the year before they were a cover athlete, and Josh Donaldson is no exception. Despite winning the MVP in 2015, in 2016 he had a slightly higher OPS and improved his on-base percentage. His 953 OPS was the 4th best in the league, only behind previous cover athletes David Ortiz and Miguel Cabrera, and this guy that you may have heard of named Mike Trout. MLB The Show 17, featuring Ken Griffey Jr. as a cover athlete. This one is a little bit tricky because he was well into retirement by the time 17 was released. So let's go back to an old game, Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. This game came out in 1998 and looks like a shell of what modern day video gaming looks looks like. However, it did have its charm, and to some it's regarded as one of the best baseball games released. There was a bit of a PCI element like MLB The Show as well. Anyways, Ken Griffey Jr. had an incredible year, and the year before he was a cover athlete, winning the MVP in 1997, leading the AL in home runs, RBIs, and slugging percentage. The year he was a cover athlete wasn't too shabby either, matching the same number of home runs with 56, but ultimately didn't get the MVP. Still, a 977 OPS while putting up 146 RBIs is pretty damn impressive, and who can beat that swing? MLB The Show 18 starring Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge has cemented himself as one of the greatest ball players in the league, breaking the rookie home run record in 2017 and the American League home run record in 2022. But how did he do as a cover athlete in 2018? While not as well as his Rookie of the Year season, he still put up very impressive numbers. However, he got hit with the ball on July 26th that put him out for almost 2 months with a fractured wrist. MLB The Show 19, starring Bryce Harper as a cover athlete, was another interesting year. At first, he was on the cover as a free agent, then was featured as a Philly after he signed his massive contract. This is all to say, Harper had about a similar year as you could drop as a cover athlete. His OPS was only 7 points lower, and he hit 1 more home run and had 2 more doubles than the year prior. MLB The Show 20 featuring Javier Baez as the cover athlete. For anyone who knows where this whole video was heading, I'm expecting a lot of you guys to come right to this spot. Javier Baez might go down as one of the most controversial athletes of all time due to his recent few years, especially after signing a major contract and really failing to provide any sort of value to that contract so far. However, Javi was a great player leading up to his cover athlete year, finishing second in MVP voting in 2018 and appearing in the All-Star game with a 847 OPS in 2019. There's a lot of hype behind Javi, whose antics on and off the field were also much watched TV. But the year 2020, yeah, it was a shitty year for all of us. Javi is no different. The year he was a cover athlete was an overall nightmare. Some may say it's obviously not all his fault, as this was a COVID season that was shortened to 60 games. There's a lot of down years from players that year, and it was really hard to get hot and even harder to get out of a slump with only that many games. And boy did Javi slump. He failed to post an OPS above 600, going with a batting average of 203 and striking out 32% of the time. This would sadly be a precursor to what he ultimately has turned into in 2023, which is a below average player at best. After signing his 6-year, $140 million contract in 2022 with the Detroit Tigers, he put up a 671 OPS with severely deflated slugging numbers and high strikeout numbers. If things continue this way, it would not surprise me if Javi ends up being one of the most overpaid athletes of all time. But as drastic as this story is the next one even more outlandish? MLB The Show 21 starring Fernando Tatis as the cover athlete. For those of you that are not here for Javier Baez, I'm sure you're probably waiting for me to discuss Fernando Tatis. And this has to be the most controversial cover athlete that we've covered so far. And if you don't know why yet, welcome back from the coma you were in. How'd you sleep? Well, Fernando put up an actual incredible year in 2021. It's hard to look at that season the same way as he got busted for taking PEDs in 2022. Leading up to his suspension, Tatis also got injured in a motorbike accident and was sidelined for 3 months, and also dealt with a shoulder injury. It's easy to say that Fernando Tatis is probably the most cursed, but I don't know how much of it is actually his fault compared to the cover athlete curse. I'm more leaning towards Fernando Tatis making terrible mistakes. And the last one will be MLB The Show 22 starring Shohei Ohtani. And Ohtani is the absolute GOAT. He barely lost out on the MVP to Aaron Judge, who put up a historic year. Ohtani also put up an incredible year. And if you don't think Ohtani deserves as much hype as he does, you should rewatch him making Mike Trout look absolutely ridiculous this year. Well, there you have it. Look, I'm not here to say I 100% believe there's an MLB The Show curse, but some of these injuries are just way too suspicious. And starting back in 2010 with Joe Mauer, I think there's some obvious instances where there might be some sort of a curse. And if you were featured as a Canadian cover athlete, odds are your season was absolutely cursed. The baseball gods clearly did not enjoy that gesture. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, thank you. And if you haven't already, please leave a like on this video. And lastly, if you did like this video, make sure to check out my video I did on Slugfest and the Bigs. I think you'll enjoy this one as well.